Well, a very warm afternoon, very warm welcome this afternoon to everybody. I'm just going to wait one further moment. One or two others are joining us, but it's 2 o'clock, so we must start. So I just want to thank everybody for who's made the journey to my study this afternoon. For those of you who are new to our Tuesday soiree, very warm welcome. Those of you who have been here more than once before, a very warm welcome back. So nice to have you here. Yes, sun's out today, washing's on the line. What more could one ask for? Right. Anyway, the normal format. We have in operation the chat line. So if anyone wants to say anything nice, that's great. If anyone wants to ask me a difficult question, that's great. We'll put it up there and I'll ignore it. If anyone wants to ask me an easy question, I'll welcome those. We are recording it, so if you do fancy a second bite of the cherry, that's always optional. We have the slides, as always. It'll be whizzing out to those of you who attended. And there's our social media handle. So if you fancy saying something on that, that's great. And as always, there's the option afterwards if you would like some one-to-one help. So there we go. Normal rules apply. We'll start with a quiz. There will be some light relief during the session, so look out for that. Actually, I must confess, I'm not in a very good mood today. Sorry for that. I've just been on the phone to BT. I rang them up to report I said to them, I want to report a nuisance caller. You know what they said to me? Oh, not you again. And also, do you know what? It had a really interesting weekend. Really interesting. Oh, tell you what, really interesting. Seems a long time ago. I met a very nice guy who was the British crossword champion, no less. The British crossword champion. I can't remember his name exactly. It was P something T something R. All right. I'll tell you, they're not new. You know, they're worth a try. So, without further ado, just anyone from the council on the call today? Anyone from the council? Just in case you are, this is Sweat. So, right, let's move on. Now, quiz time. I did that joke last week as well, but it's quiz time. As always, we have a quiz and there's a prize. So without further ado, please use the chat line. We do encourage that. So there we are. Question 1, all on topics of marketing. The average buyer consults 11 consumer reviews on their path to purchase. True or false? Anyone fancy? Oh, we got somebody on the chat line. Who's that? Who's on the chat line? I don't know. It doesn't come up on the screen. Let's have a look at it again. Let's have a look. Not there. Right. So it's true. Yes, it is true. So hopefully an easy one to start with. So here's got articles, like blogs with images get 74% more views. True or false? Anyone going to have a go at that? Quite straightforward on that, really, I think. It's false, because it's up to 94%. If you are creating content, well worth adding images. Right. Next question. How many of you are multitasking now while half listening? I read a survey there about how many people are on Zoom webinars and doing something else. What are you doing then? At least 80% or more. Come on, how many of you are doing any one of those 3 things right now? Confession time. Anyone doing a bit of ironing, a bit of social media, a bit watching the telly? Anyone want to confess? Confess? Anyone on another webinar, Kevin? Anyone on another webinar? So, there we go. Move swiftly on. Here we go. This is a good question. Right, so what are the 6 most profitable words in business history? Hey, you weren't expecting that, were you? Anyone want to take a stab at what they might be? I'm going to sit and wait for a moment while you try and answer that. 6 most profitable words in business history. You'll know it when you see the answer. You'll know it when you see the answer. Would you like fries with that? Is the very same answer. Upselling, cross-selling. There we go. Would you like fries with that? Made them a fortune. Right, next question. To create the illusion of luxury, Victoria's Secret listed its headquarters on catalogues at a fake London address. True or false? Anyone fancy that? Yes, it is. It is true. They're in Columbus, Ohio. So there we go. Marketing is all about perception, no less. There you go. Here's a good one. Coca-Cola cancelled a promotion that had randomly generated English and French words inside their caps after a lady received one that said, "You retard." How about that? That can't possibly be true. Well, I don't know, is it? I don't know. It is true. There you go. All about language. So that was indeed true. Next question. You can see it on the screen. Well, of course, we can't let you down. Now, here's a good one. What popular global car only sold 2 vehicles in the USA in 1949? How about that? Oh, that's a bit random, isn't it? You know what the answer is? 2 cars. There. The VW Beetle. Did you know that? How many are you thinking? Wonder when this webinar is going to start? But we'll ask one more, just keep your toes. Here's a good one. Why is there a leaf on the Apple logo? Does anyone know that? Aha. Any takers on the chat line for that one before we reveal the answer? The answer is here. A bit of a linkage in the cars today. And so as not to confuse an apple with a cherry. For those of you a certain age group, you'll know that is a Datsun or Nissan Cherry. Hey, there's some preparation goes into this, Don't just make it up on the morning. Right, number 8. Do you think? Of course not. Of course not, because moving on to do the topic of the day, how to do market research in 5 easy steps or 4 difficult ones. So here we go. Right, ready, you're all pens at the ready. Come on, pens at the ready. Now here's a good one. What do so many successful businesses have in common? Well, firstly, they understand who their target customers are. They will more than likely know the problems their target customers are facing, what their expectations of a solution might be for the customers, when, where, and how they'd go searching for it. Now, they don't know this by accident. They know this because they've done due diligence and dedicated market research. So do you know the answers to those questions yourself as far as your business is concerned? Who your audience is, the problems they're facing, the expectations, what a solution might be, and how they'll go about searching for it. If you don't, well, I hope for the next sort of half an hour, 3/4 an hour, will give you some insight into that. But certainly knowing the absolute nuances of your customers is key. So let's talk in more detail about market research. But before, we always like to start with this. Go on, you know the answer to that question. Why startups fail? Would anyone like to proffer any wise words on the chat line? Well, the next slide is going to show you a little survey that was done of businesses as to why they fail. A bit heavy, and you probably thought cash was number 1, but it's number 2, because no marked need for the product or service was number 1. Not the right team, you go down there, that, number one, no marked need for what is wanted is principally the main reason why startups fail. It's doing your research, and to do it objectively. Often you encounter many businesses who think it's a good idea. Oops, people going on? Copyright. They don't reach your audience. So Sal's pointing that out. They don't reach your audience. So I'm just going to accept a couple of people into the waiting room. Just bear with me a tick. I hope we can let them in. Where we are, we're going to admit them, Rachel and Sally, in. So forgive me for a little interruption. Yeah. So I'm going to go back one slide. So thank you. Welcome to Abroad. So we're just talking about why startups fail. No need, no market. So do your market research is the old adage. If you were starting a business tomorrow, you would hope that you would do some research to help you understand if there is a market and whether there is a need. So let's crack on. What is market research? Well, I think you know the answer to that. A couple of dictionary definitions coming up. Market research is the process of gathering facts about a certain market, but also studying market dynamics as well as the rationale of potential customer behavior. Gathering facts being the critical thing, studying the dynamics as well as the rationale of behavior. So facts, rationale. Yeah, market research, quite simple stuff. Okay, so first and foremost, if you know what the thing is, you're trying to gather facts, you're trying to gather reasoning behind that, I would ask this question of you. What is the purpose of your marketing or market research? Well, the next few slides will show you some of the different ways in which you can conduct market research. Yeah, staged photographs. Yeah, everyone looking very happy. But invariably, many people would fall on the idea that it's about understanding your customers and their behavior. But there are many other things, such as you're validating your business idea. How often do we walk down the street or we have a casual conversation with somebody and you think, oh, I've got a business idea, and you go, then you think all the way through about, oh, I could do this, could do that, could do the other. But you know, is there a market? How well is the market catered for, etc., etc. So a business idea, all a little bit further down the line, then you will do market research, test your business idea. Gosh, who remembers those old science lessons at school? I don't think they have Bunsen burners at school anymore. And I never really understood why we had tested litmus paper or anything like that. But there we are. So yeah, that's a sort of quick anecdote from school. So testing your business idea. Or is it something a little bit left field in that you'll be doing market research with a view for attracting investors, whether that's crowd funding or other channels, or just maybe to get people to buy your business, who knows? So think about market research for lots of different ways. So ultimately, maybe on multi-layered routes, about thinking about the purpose of what you're trying to do. Okay, right. Or of course, it could be just, you know, checking out the competition. And a special prize if anybody can put on the chat line who Derek Jeter is. So there we go, a little bit of light of relief. So fundamentally, there are two types of market research. You knew this already, didn't you? Know what they are? Anyone know what two types of market research are? Anyone like to take a wild stab on the chat line? You know, be quick on. You know, Liz is walking her dog while she's doing this. Well, I hope you're having a nice time, and I hope you're getting value from it. You know, Andrea says field and desk. Well, there's a big shout out to Andrea. Have you seen this present? Have you seen this webinar before, Andrea? That's fabulous. Yeah. Oof. I want to cook it on gas. Primary and secondary research. But you're right. Field and desk. Come on. Yes, field, yeah. I'm sorry if that picture of field is a bit corny. But can you remember how many of you are old enough to remember when we had inkwells in your desk? Remember that? And somebody might be old enough to remember when you had ink in your inkwells. There we go. So, yes, the field and desk research, primary and secondary research. So there we go. Right. What's next? Oh, I know. A bit more of an explanation. The primary and secondary, desk and field. The primary is you'll do it yourself. Secondary, you will actually go to information provided by others. Hence, the primary is the field and the secondary is the desk. The primary, you're asking specific questions. The secondary, the research has been done already. Secondary will be cheaper, and primary, you not need a budget. But ultimately, they provide information to answer your questions. And today, we'll be going through primary and secondary research, desk and field. But don't forget, there's also online and offline. So it's another way of looking at it. You may find, although there's obviously overlaps here, as we'll cover in undertaking surveys. So, firstly, the quality of the slide is getting better. They've got moving things now. So first thing we'll do, we can look at checking industry trends. Now, who's heard of this? Well, you've all heard of Google. I'm sure you have. But how many of you have actually heard of Think with Google? And how many of you who are not walking the dog, not multitasking, are actually doing it right now? Well, Think with Google is well worth Googling. And it usually covers this. This is new in 2020, in that there are a Google for rising retail categories. The name is showing you all about trends in retail. So there enough. So if your particular market sector is in that, you may wish to consult rising retail categories to get your information. Yeah. You know, Sal, I can't believe you were the ink monitor at school. Gosh. You know, I was the milk monitor at school. You know, in the days we used to have, remember these days used to have milk at school. Yeah. Famous stories relating to that. So next on the list is to look at Google Trends. Google Trends, always a great place to go to actually see, alongside rising retail categories, to go to Google Trends. Is a way in which you can gather information relating to any form of search. It's a great way to get very simple information. Alternatively, you can go to another part of Think with Google. Apologies for the slightly blurred screen. How about going to Google Shopping Insights, which I think from memory, it was, doesn't that explore trends and popularity of products? I think it does. So Google Shopping Insights. Now, it doesn't have to be product, but you can actually look upon other ways for all those areas of the trends and the rising retail. And here you can gather information, very simple to use. So register with Google and type away to your heart's content. 3 places to go for excellent secondary research. The other place I would probably think about going is some of your industry magazines. I'm not sure about the one on the bottom, but you can see there's still a foundation for niches and trends, but often many of them are invaluable places for your specific industry. So think about that. So as well as the Google products, also to go to some of your industry publications. Right. Next thing you can do is to compare your competitors. And how would you do that? Here you are. What do you think this is? Well, you have to ask yourself about your competitors, whether they are contrived football analogy here, whether they are direct or indirect. If anyone knows anything, anyone knows and understands VAR, Can you just drop me a line, please? Drop me a line. So, anyway, direct and indirect. So direct opponent. This is direct competitors. It's quite important that your direct competitors belong to the same price segment of goods and services, have similar audiences and similar products, promotion and channels. So they would be a direct competitor. What, pray tell, are you thinking is an indirect competitor? Well, I don't know. Anyone, any suggestions? I'll give you it. The audience of indirect competitors is like yours, but the product and service is distinctly different. In effect, if you talked about the food sector, you could argue that one branch of food is different to another, but you are fighting, in effect, for the same spend, but you might consider it to be different. When you're thinking about your searching your researching your competition, think direct and indirect in terms of how we're doing it. And sometimes it's confusing, not confusing the two. Okay. Now, who can remember them? Who can remember them? And who are they? Who are they? So I'm going to sit back now, and I'm going to have a look on the chat line to see who knows who they are. They have to be a certain age group to remember them. Any takers? Any takers? Have we got any takers? Andrea, S Club 7. Warm. Oh, Mick, you're the man. Mick is the man. Steps. Because today is all about 5 steps in market research. And if you could tell me any of their songs, that would be great. And an absolute tragedy they're not together. Right. So firstly, the first step in your market research is define your target audience. Hang on, we've got something else in the chat line here. Oh, hang on. So imagine you are involved. It's just for example, we are a hypothetical ladies' fashion business. Okay? So we might think about defining who our audience is. And it isn't good enough to say that you cater for women. You think of it, I just put on the screen 5 areas in which you may try and differentiate and look for more of a granular focus. That would be the age, what you may perceive to be the income, their habits, their occupation, and their location. You need to think in a lot more way, right? Because there's 3.5 billion ladies in the world, and you have to be a little bit more very specific. And then you would adopt a classic funnel approach. You'd start at the top, so obviously it's critical with maybe the gender, and the age, and then a final sieves to get your audience very specific. So what's really important is the gender, the age, and then something else. Underneath the final thing there, you see that you may be targeting women aged above 25 with a yearly income of just an arbitrary figure, which you can approximate depending on what you believe their occupation to be. So thinking that you're really carefully defining your audience. You'll see this actually when you go walking, well, in the pre-COVID days, we used to walk up the high street, didn't we? The town we're in, and you'd see a lady and a gentleman in a precinct is a bit old-fashioned, isn't it? In a thoroughfare with a clipboard. You tried to avoid them, didn't you? You were trying to avoid them, thinking, I hope they don't make eye contact with me. They'd have a name badge or lanyard. But what were they doing? Well, we're getting cold. That's one thing. Yes, next question. They were looking for people. And what they were looking for? They were looking for people who they would probably funneled, looking for people of a certain gender, certain age, and they're making judgments on people walking up to them. So, you know, so I would I'd walk quicker. I thought I was younger. But they were doing that. So you're doing the same way. So think about that. Now, in terms of, I would look carefully for some low-hanging fruit. Your existing customers first. So hopefully you'll have a CRM system or mentality. You'll have existing analysis of your customers, and you'll segment your customers anyway. by whatever method, and your buying habits, particularly if you have online retail or even offline, you're thinking carefully about your existing customers and you're doing some analysis first, and you apply the same rules to your prospective customers. Data is king. Right, so that's the first thing in doing your research. Who are you targeting? Now, the second thing to think about is to what you need to learn from your audience. Aha! Now, not possibly 100% relevant, but we're now taking a hypothetical idea about starting a gym. Starting a gym. Actually, I think I've told this story before that I contacted my local gym, didn't I? Did I tell that one? I think I did. I have done. I spoke to a personal trainer down there and said, could you help me do the splits? He said, how flexible are you? I said, I can't do Thursdays. Anyway, so let's move on. I have an idea I want to turn into a business. So if you wanted to start a gym, you would ask these questions. Firstly, whether your target audience actually exercises, where they exercise, what times, how often, and their current method. It's not good enough just to know. I'm thinking about, you want to know exactly these things, because that will help you put together your analysis once you've got the questions asked. So whether you're thinking, really, what do you really want to know? And critically, what the pain points are. Some of these people potentially would be members of the gym, but they can't park outside, for example. Or they want to go into ladies only or men only sessions, or whatever it might be, or whatever. So it's asking what their pain points are. Second way is what many people face now. It's the question, maybe running a business, but you're struggling to grow. And then you really need to know the answer to this. Are you actually targeting the right audience? You define them correctly. Or are you targeting the right audience, but in the wrong way? For example, I'm helping a restaurant out at the moment, and they're very busy on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but they're not busy during the week. And we've conducted market research by just asking the diners during their stay on the Friday and Saturday, just ask them for 2 minutes at the end of their meal about why they only come to the restaurant at those particular times, and what they would like to, about their potential dining behavior midweek. We wanted to know the what and the why. But it's usually down, not down anything to do with the restaurant, it's down the fact that they're doing something else at that time. So to go back a few steps, you're actually thinking we need to get people into the restaurant on a Wednesday. We need to find a different audience. So you're looking at the right, you're talking to, doing the research to the right audience to ask them the questions, but in effect, you're going to be marketing to a different audience that's knowing the answers to that. There we go. So what you need to learn from your audience, you define them, what you need to know, and then you need to decide survey data. What survey said? Right. So you need, in effect, to translate what you want to learn into how you'll learn to do it. And in terms of putting surveys and questions together, this is the hardest thing to do. To ask the right questions and to interpret them to give you worthwhile information. You might say that's a really good question to ask, isn't it? How can we improve our service? Is that a good question to ask? Well, in family fortune style, it's far more worthwhile to ask much more specific questions. How can we improve our service is very, very vague. Here you're getting far more value. You're asking the client, can you describe an experience that went well? Can you describe an experience that didn't go well? And which parts of the poor experience or good experience stand out the most to you? I'll guarantee a strong boast, that you'll get far more value from asking specific questions on this type of scenario than asking, how was our service? Much in the same way as when somebody, a waiter comes up to you and said, how is your meal? I think a far more worthwhile question is a more specific one. There we go. Tips. Focus on asking questions that don't lead response a particular way. You just get a biased outcome. You have to ask questions that don't lead in a particular way. For example, you don't say, what do you think of our coffee? First question is, have you had a coffee? Because if they say no, it's pointless in asking the secondary question. You've got to actually sometimes ask a qualifying question to gauge the person's interest before you start to ask more specific questions. There we go. Now, exactly, avoid assumptions. Let's move on. So, tips, avoid adjectives in the phrasing of your question. For example, a bit American, isn't it? Tell us how awesome. I can't do accents. Tell us how awesome your experience was. No. Have them rate the experience. So out of 10, how was your experience? You're not leading them, and you're not putting them under any pressure to come up with an 8, 9, or 10. Use consistent phrasing and formatting. So one question at a time. Ask a question and never use double-barreled questions. Asking in a same way. So that's second tip. Okay? So audience, what you want to learn, the survey you need, and now you have to conduct the survey. Which is the bit you have thought I was going to talk about most? Well, I am. So conduct and distribute your survey. So really, how many of you face this situation? You get an email through saying, please will you help us and conduct a survey? It'll only take you 20 minutes. Well, that 20 minutes usually ends up being deleted. So your survey ideally should be simple, quick, and engaging. Engaging often can be an incentive for so doing, but to make it short and sharp, so ask the least amount of questions to elicit the most results. You don't have to do it all in one go. Now, what's this doing on the screen? Well, one of the questions often I'm asked is, how do I get people to take part in a survey? Well, as I mentioned, you would probably, once you know who your audience is, you may wish to run Google ads and Facebook ads to get people to take part, because you are then seeking a defined audience. And you then may think you can gather your information by taking part in focus groups. I've actually taken part in focus groups myself. There's some great research tools to go and use, like Saros and places like that, where you can actually, companies would use a focus group or conduct them yourselves. Half a dozen people together and asking salient and well-prepared questions, focus groups. Another one is actually to undertake observational research, either with someone participating or non-participating, watching people in their environment. I've seen it done behind closed doors when people are watching, not knowing who they're watching, or just to observe. And you'll see that often in a retail setting. So think about research. Now, probably the most common one is actually to conduct online surveys. So many of you will be familiar with potential survey tools. And on the screen now are 8 of them to choose from. So I'm going to leave it on the, now some of you have probably not heard of all of them. I remember Heartbeat. I really enjoyed that program. But maybe you're thinking about possibly SurveyMonkey being one, or using some of the Google ones. I'm going to give you, I'm going against my better judgment here. The one that I have used most has been SoGo. I'm not intending to read everything that's written on the screen, but you've got unlimited surveys, questions, and I found that personally the most functional. but many people default to using SurveyMonkey. You'll get a copy of the slides through, but again, these are great tools in which to use. Alternatively, you can get desk research, 2 meters, 1 meter plus, asking people questions face to face. So it's a great way, but again, maybe not so COVID safe, but looking in the whites of the eyes is a very powerful way of gathering information. Or how about a little bit of social media listening? Now, what's that doing on the screen? Is it something I downloaded from the web? No, with great power comes great responsibility and all that good stuff. But simply, the theme there is that social media is the world's largest focus group. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. But I would strongly suggest that you take part in social media listening if that's part of where you believe your audience is. And probably the best way to go on the best site to use for this, although there are others, let's put out, is mention.com. And you may conduct searches in a particular way on mention.com where you are listening for customer feedback. And here on the screen, again, I'm not intending to go through this in great detail, but you can see how you would look for a search and looking at those, because Mention is going through social media. You may choose Google Alerts as well to look for other information on Google, but here very much for social media listening. So mention.com and Google Alerts, and setting up your alerts in a particular way, so you know about your clients, your customers, your products, etc. Getting feedback from social media, which you're going to have to sanitize. Okay. Now, the next thing in terms of your research, all of that there related to, right from focus group to social media listening, was very much about primary research. Although you can make a case social media less so. But secondary research looked very much towards your internal data, what you have on clients, also trade data. So many of you have heard about the WTO in a different context. Name check for Michael Gove there. But they're a source of fantastic information about what's happening out in the world. There's also lots out there in terms of very specific commercial marketing data. And for those of you who are members of the Chamber of Commerce, and also for a lesser extent the FSB, there's places to go to inquire as to what market information is out there in terms of secondary. Now, another place to go is search engines for your results. Ooh. So you get online competitive analysis. I mentioned about setting up Google Alerts, but there are lots of places to go to get this information. And one is and again, I have to say there are other such organizations out there providing market information, and I'll take you through a few, but one place to go is SimilarWeb, as the name suggests there. What it does do is this. It provides information on clients and competitors' web traffic. It'll give you referral sources, and it'll give you website stickiness, how people stay on it. But great place to go for information on your clients, SimilarWeb. For SEO purposes, certainly, and again, searches, always Google the keyword planner. Can be a bit clunky to use because you're having to sign up, credit card and all that good stuff. But you know, once you're in, you can conduct some fantastic keyword research. For those of you on Facebook, you've got the benefit, if you've got a certain number of users and activity, you can have the audience insights. But again, a very meritorious tool for secondary and online data. And how about, I can't even say it, Statista, which is a German portal for statistics, providing a whole range of stats and facts relating to global market research. Again, a great tool to go to. So there we go. So a few tricks. So Statista, SimilarWeb, Google, all good places to go. Now, have you know a few Google search tricks? Now, hey, these aren't Jedi mind tricks. These are not the droids you're looking for. Actually, we can have a quick, we've got time for a quick anecdote, haven't we? For those of you who are old enough to remember, the gentleman on the far side, the character was Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by none other than Sir Alec Guinness. Now, he did a fantastic piece of negotiation. He got sent the script for Star Wars and thought, oh, not so sure about this. And he agreed, and he said, okay, I'll do it. But I'll take 2.25% of the box office. And the producers agreed to it. There we go. So ultimately, he was £50 million better off for making that decision. There we go. Quick anecdote. Google that one. So yes, so where did that come to? Search tricks. Right. Effectively use Google. Do the following. If you're looking for an exact word or phrase, put it in inverted commas. If you're looking for a website, you can use a keyword and put the domain name after a colon. It's a great way of actually looking at the pages there. Using Google Trends, and ultimately to use Google Images, where you can find reports on market research. So actually searching under Google Images. 4 quick tips there. Quotes, put in the domain name, the Google Trends and Google Images, all to effectively use Google. There we are. So another way in terms of online is to do social polling. You've seen that usually used quite extensively on Twitter. So to actually ask questions of your audience. And for those of you who want engagement on Facebook and Instagram, as well as Twitter, ask questions. That's a great way to get audience engagement. So think about using social polling. Polling is quite easy to set up, particularly on Twitter. So you might remember this all began with 5 steps. So we've done our audience, what we need to learn, the data we need, how to conduct the survey, which you've just gone through, and now we need some insight. You've got all this information. Let's extract what's it going to tell us. These are the things you need to know. What was your goal before you set out? Who did you talk to? What have you learned? What are those common triggers? What's a common between all the issues that you've raised? What are the themes you've uncovered? And importantly, finally, what are you going to do as a result? So goals, participants, an executive summary, the issues relating to the awareness and the themes that you've actually uncovered that you didn't expect. What are you going to do next? That is why you're conducting a survey. Okay. Usually, it might end in 2 ways. You might then, very familiar by creating a SWOT analysis for what either for the company or for the product or for the service, strengths, weaknesses, everything that you have uncovered. Alternatively, and well worth looking far deeper at, is Porter's tools. So they talk in a slightly different way about the threats, buyer power, substitution, supplier power, and competitive rivalry. It's a different way of looking at the results. You may choose a SWOT analysis, which is probably the most well-known, or on usually the 5 tools of Porter's. So, does this all sound like hard work? That bloke's been rabbiting on for 3/4 of an hour. What am I going to do? Well, you don't have to do it yourself. On the screen there are plenty of places to go. There are numerous market research companies. So you can always outsource it. For those of you who may be on a budget, who are looking at doing it in a different way, I would highly recommend one of these 3, where you can actually post your market research online on these places and get potential freelancers to bid for it. I did one recently for a client. I asked for some market research about anaesthetists. Hard to say that. Actually, I once went out with an anaesthetist. She was a local girl. So I looked for market research relating to anaesthetists, and I got somebody to conduct it for me, and it cost me not a great deal. It was less than £100 to have an assessment of the market and the major numbers of anaesthetists, etc., in a particular area. Very good way to go. So you can look at those. Now, we're getting to the end. Now, what's this up on the screen? This is Simon's confession moment in terms of alternative ways of doing market research. It's slightly unethical. It's between me and you. I once worked for a company. That's true, I did. And what they used to do, they used to invite their key customers to visit them, and they'd always arrange for a taxi to take them from the station to the company and return them. Great thing to do, isn't it? Pick them up from the airport, pick them up from the station. Yeah, we've got a taxi. Don't worry, we'll drive you to our offices and return you. Yeah, very good. If I told you that often they would actually interview the taxi driver afterwards, find out what the clients have been saying in the back, would that surprise you? Now, I'm not suggesting to do that, but there's ways I've heard of many companies conducting market research called what we used to call listening at keyholes. But there we go. So that's one way. And another way that might be considered slightly unethical is for you to send in quotations or get your friends, whomever it might be, to do questions or ask questions of who you may perceive to be your direct or indirect competition. It's a great way of gauging your own assessment of them. But don't forget, this works both ways. So, finally, what's the future? What's the future? You know, I want it to be current for a moment. Well, the future, naturally, in many situations, is artificial intelligence, which is the future of market research. But you see it now in so many different ways. You see intercept surveys. How many of you are leaving supermarkets or in airports and places asking to push a button whether what the service was like, and to do things, and people actually to be on phone calls and to undertake a survey at the end of the phone call, or to be online and a survey to pop up? It is where the future is heading. So you may wish to think about conducting that yourself on your own website under your own scenario. So hopefully you've gleaned quite something from the 5 steps of undertaking market research, and there are also tips in there you may find beneficial. I'd like to thank you for attending today's webinar. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we're always back next week. So what's next? We're going to have afternoon tea and a mandatory Tuesday crumpets. If you would like some marketing help on a one-to-one basis, please drop me a line. The slides are coming your way. And what's going to happen next week? In 6 sleeps time? It's going to be all about sales. The old Anedian line, for those of you who remember it. So I'm going to stop the sharing now. And I'm going to go to the chat line to see if there's any questions. Sal has asked, are the social media listening tools free? They are. But like a lot of tools, if you want the budget version, you can have it to a certain level. If you want to have extras, you do it. But I would certainly recommend doing that. Google Alerts is certainly free. VAR is value-added reseller software. Yes, a good question. But any other questions? Andrea says that was really useful. Thank you. Well, thank you. I hope the dog enjoyed the walk. So, is this where we have? I'm going to look at the screen and hope there's any further questions coming away. If not, oh, there's one other. There's one other. Ali says, thank you. Well, you're more than welcome. So without further ado, unless there are no more questions winkling their way into the chat box, when is the next one? Well, Tuesday. I've got nothing else to do on a Tuesday afternoon. Next week is a double header. As a matter, we're going to talk all about sales. There are 2 webinars next week, one on sales strategy and the other on sales skills. We're going to take a slight risk. It's going to be interactive. We're going to have people talking. There we go now. Any other questions before I wish you a pleasant afternoon? Well, if not, I'm going to say thank you very much once again for listening. I hope you've enjoyed today's tour through the world of market research. And to remind you, if you'd like to tune in next Tuesday, we'll be here. So without further ado, adieu.